Toy Story is a series that I've grown up with and I've loved my whole life, and it's helped shape who I am as a film and animation fan today. Growing up, I had all the toys, I watched all the movies 24/7, and on top of all that, it is the most prominent computer animated film franchise probably ever. Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 helped solidify Pixar's status as the ultimate animation giants to be reckoned with. The classic Toy Story trilogy is one of those rare, perfect trilogies that luckily avoided getting a dud. Yet despite that, I was really worried how the latest installment would turn out, and feared that after the third film seemingly wrapped up everything perfectly, there are no more stories to tell. Usually when there's a perfect trilogy of films and a fourth film of a franchise comes in, it fucks up everything. Star Wars The Phantom Menace, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and Hobbit An Unexpected Journey are examples. I was afraid of my childhood being torn to little tiny bite-sized pieces like a snake in my boot that slithered across my pants and bit me in the ass. It's no newsflash to anyone that most of the new content that Pixar has been turning out have been sequels. Even some of them that I enjoyed well enough, like Finding Dory and Incredibles 2, still don't hold a candle to their predecessors, while others I honestly don't enjoy at all, like Cars 3 and Monster State Penitentiary, and I especially hate Cars 2, as that's the movie that everyone agrees is the worst of the company's catalog. So with this in mind, Pixar doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to sequels. I mean, I had a feeling that Toy Story 4 would get good reviews no doubt, but I was afraid that in my opinion, it would be the turning point for the series. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the plot to Toy Story 4 revolves around Bonnie, the toy's current owner in the series, and her introduction to preschool and how she's nervous and antsy about it. That isn't until she literally creates a new friend that helps her get used to her new daily environments, a spork named Forky. Woody believes that it's important to keep Forky safe as he believes that he's essential to Bonnie succeeding in school. So when Forky all of a sudden gets lost, Woody has to go on a huge journey to retrieve him and return to their owner. In doing so, they encounter old and new friends along the way. When I initially watched the trailer to the film, I was baffled by how stupid the premise sounded, which only made me more worried about how the film would turn out. However, in June, when I visited Disneyland in California where they screened the first 10 minutes of the film, and it didn't look half bad. It felt like a Toy Story film, and the animation looked jaw-dropping. Like I said earlier, I expected this movie to be well received, but nowhere as much as the previous films. However, I was shocked that when the reviews dropped, the film's critical response was about on par with the other Toy Stories, which is something that other Pixar sequels couldn't manage being. So I think that's one of the factors that helped me go in with an open mind. After watching the film twice, once with my own family, and another with a different... After watching the film twice, once with my own family and another with a different group of people, I can safely say this is surprisingly a very enjoyable and solid piece of family entertainment. First off, I know this is an aspect of modern animated movies that's been praised to no end, but I have to give mad praise to the animation. I was in utter shock how realistic some of the visuals looked. It is to the point where sometimes it looks more like live action than animation. It honestly makes it more fun to compare to the first Toy Story movie, knowing that's the first fully computer animated feature film in history, to Toy Story 4 to analyze how far Pixar has come with their animated graphics. The most important tasks when it comes to making a sequel are three important things. 1. Leaving an impact on the series' ongoing canon. 2. Adding new, interesting characters. And 3. Standing on its own. When it comes to these rules, Toy Story 4 applies them quite well. Without spoiling anything, if the series were to continue from here, which I wholeheartedly hope to God it doesn't, the Toy Story canon would be noticeably different. On top of that, I also found the new characters pretty charming and likable. Key and Peele as Ducky and Bunny got quite a few laughs out of me, which is something that I didn't expect because from the trailers they looked kind of annoying. I especially hated this one line one of the characters said in a preview, "To infinity and your mom." It sounded like the writers were trying to make Toy Story edgier or something, but truth be told, I actually enjoyed their dynamic. Speaking of, I also enjoyed the character of Forky. He wasn't in the movie that much, but when he was gentle and sweet and didn't annoy me to death like I thought he would from the first trailer. Bo Peep has been transformed into one badass motherfucker, and I don't think I need to go into detail about Duke Kaboom Boom, voiced by the man, the myth, the legend, Keanu Reeves.
Duke Kaboom, Canada's greatest stuntman. Huh. Oh yeah. Ha. Huh. Yes.
Huh?
Hold on. One more. Oh yeah.
Though I really enjoyed the new set of characters, the recurring ones like Ham, Rex, and Potato Head didn't really have much of a presence in this film. Though I can kind of see why, because they didn't want to cram in too many characters in one film, but it's still kind of hard not to notice. Mr. Potato Head literally only had one line in the film, and my guess is that line was copied from one of the previous installments because it sounded like something that he said in the past. Plus, Don Rickles passed away a few years ago and they probably couldn't find a replacement for him. If you're someone who ironically has never seen any of the Toy Story movies, you wouldn't need to see any of them if you were to watch this film on its own, because it briefly recaps all the events from the preceding films in the first 10 minutes. I have to say, Toy Story 4 follows these important steps in making a good sequel better than Incredibles 2 did. Even though I still enjoy that movie okay, it never really added anything new to the franchise's story arc. You could just make an Incredibles 3, and pretty much nothing would have changed since the first film, and it never really stands on its own either. There are scenes in that film that build on previous events in the first Incredibles, but it doesn't really introduce them for those who haven't seen the original. You'd only understand said previous events if you watched the first Incredibles. It's kind of ironic that the sequel nobody wanted is actually better than the sequel that everyone anticipated for years. Another thing worth noting is earlier I mentioned that I saw the film twice with two groups of people. The second group I saw it with were pissed by how Bonnie treated Woody after Andy gave him away at the end of the third film, when Andy probably would have treated Woody more respectfully if he stayed with him. And of course, that final scene you know I'm talking about if you saw the movie. It was pretty sad, I guess. It just never really grabbed me and put me to tears like the fire incinerator scene in Toy Story 3. In case you didn't hear the news, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen both got sentimental and emotional during the session they were recording their final lines for the film. Which, the final scene made me sad, but it didn't quite make me sob. So in the end, was this a good time? Yeah, it was. Did it need to exist? No, not really. Though if you watched the film, you might have realized in a way it does bring Woody's journey to an end. Despite the positive feedback, the film didn't make as much money as expected. As I'm recording this, the movie has finally made $1 billion at the box office, but has grossed less than other Pixar sequels like Finding Dory and Incredibles 2. The fact that Toy Story is Pixar's flagship series and the latest installment grossed less than the sequels of slightly less popular franchises might raise a few eyebrows. This might be from the little demand that people had for another Toy Story movie. While people were anticipating seeing characters from Finding Nemo in the Incredibles universes again after a 13 to 14 year gap, people possibly weren't as excited for Toy Story 4 because we've already seen these characters since Toy Story 3, from the theatrical shorts and the 2 TV specials. You can even say that Toy Story 3 was anticipated from the 10-year gap between Toy Story 2 and 3, because we haven't seen these characters in between all that time. The fact that Toy Story 4 also continued a seemingly ended series also didn't give people much reason to rush out and see it, and might have given some the impression that the series could go on forever. So with Toy Story 4 released, this is kind of an end of an era for Pixar. They're now moving on and once again dedicating a majority of their future projects to original films like their glory days. So whatever films they have in store for us, I hope like their best films, they retain that Pixar genius and take the world by storm.